Welcome to Grammar eLecture for Cambridge Latin Course Chapter 1. At the start of every chapter, we're going to have a grammar eLecture where I kind of go over the concepts that are found that we'll go over in class for you to generate some ideas and kind of get a preview. It makes it more efficient. Well, every chapter, we're going to start with the standards. These are the skills we need to pick up and that will be assessed on in the exam. We're going to talk about nouns a lot in this first chapter, and we're going to kind of introduce you to how Latin works. One of the difficult parts of Latin is that every noun will have different endings. All nouns fall into families. Think of them like species of birds, and they have endings that go on to these nouns that indicate something called case. Case tells you how the noun is being used in the sentence. We will introduce you to memorizing all of these forms, but first let's have a little video on what are nouns.
Every person you can know and every place that you can go and anything that you can show, they're nouns. A noun's a name you ever heard. I find it quite interesting. A noun's a person, place, or thing. Oh, I took a train to another state. The flora and the fauna that I saw were really great. When I saw some bandits chasing the train, I was wishing I was back home again. I took a train to another state. Well, every person you can know, like a bandit or an engineer, and every place that you can go, like a state or a home, and anything that you can show, like animals and plants or a tree. You know their nouns. Oh, Mrs. Jones is a lady on Hudson Street. She sent her dog to bark at my brother and me. We gave her dog a big fat bone, and now he barks at Mrs. Jones. She's a lady who lives on Hudson Street. Well, every person you can know, Mrs. Jones, a lady or a brother. Every place that you can go, like a street or a corner. And anything that you can show, like a dog or a bone. You know their nouns. You know their nouns.
Oh,
Statue of Liberty. My best friend was waiting there for me. We took an early ferry. Went for a walk on the island, and in the middle of summer it started to snow. And I took a ferry to the Statue of Liberty. Well, every person you can know, like a friend or the captain of a ship, every place that you can go, an island or a sea, anything that you can show, like a statue, a ferry, or snow. You know their nouns. You know their nouns.
so those are nouns. We know them from English that nouns are nouns. They're person, places, or things. Yes, ideas are indeed things. So, what does this case mean? So, we know that nouns have these things called case. Well, nouns will indicate if a noun is in a certain purpose in a sentence. In other words, is it a subject, an object, an indirect object? Right now, we don't have to worry about the accusative, and we'll only play a little bit with the ablative, and let's hold off on the dative and genitive. So we're only going to be functioning in the nominative and the ablative. Well, first off, let's take a look at all nouns. All nouns have something called a stem. A stem doesn't change, it's constant. Silve, hort, bel, consul. And these noun declensions first, second, second neuter, and third. Now, first declension has a lot of what letter? A lot of A. I, us, is, arum. And it doesn't matter. This, we could use any declension. We could use any first declension noun. We could use we, etc. Hortus, second declension, hortus, hortum, horto, horto, horti, horti, hortos, hortis, hortis, hortorum. Second neuter indicates bellum, bellum, bello, bello, belli, bella, bella, bellis, bellis, bellorum. Finally, third declension. Third declension is a little different. You see, first ends in second ends in us, second neuter Third declension is a lot of different nouns. They don't have a specific ending. They're just not us or and their endings are m, e, is, es, ibus. So you're going to memorize that because Latin is important for memorization. Well, you could memorize it by writing the various forms out 10 times, but that won't help. Best way is to replicate the test-taking environment. So with your highlighter, highlight those similar forms. So singular genitive have a long I right over there. Then your accusative singular has a beautiful M. Your ablative and the dative of second and second neuter have a long O. Your singular genitive and plural nominative have a long I there. Nice block right there. Plural accusative, as and os. Plural ablative and datives, a nice big chunk. Is. Isn't that nice? And then, of course, for plural genitive, a first, second neuter, it's either arum or aurum. A little bit more, we have a block of 3 AEs, which are pronounced I. Neuter, the same form in the nominative and the accusative. And same for the plural, which happens to be the same as so what. Now, when you look at third declension, you have ace, you have ibus. So when you chunk it together like this, you need to memorize it by writing it, and closing your eyes and just recite it. Write and recite. All nouns will follow these declensions, these forms. So here we have a little noun from the sentence. We have Metella est mater, Quintus est filius, and Lucia est filia. So in this sentence, Metella is a noun. Its first declension ends in A. We have also Quintus, it ends in US, so it's second declension. Filius follows second declension. Lucia, first declension, ends in A. And then, of course, filia, which is also first declension. So that means those forms will work. Now, here's a little bit of things that we have to cover in terms of third declension nouns. These aren't the people these are the people we saw. We have Clemens est servus, Grumio est coquus, and of course, Cerberus est canis. So let's take a look at this. Now, servus is the second declension noun, but Clemens doesn't end in aserum, so it follows third, consul. Grumio follows third as well, because it doesn't end in aserum, but coquus is. Cerberus is indeed a second declension noun. It ends just like hortus. But canis doesn't end in us or so it's third declension. All right, just a little bit of a deep dive now. So in the sentence, filia est in horto, what declension does that follow? Well, you have an A ending there, so it's going to follow first declension. You have filia in horto legit, so we have horto. What declension does that follow? Well, the long O in the ablative would be second declension. And finally, canis doesn't end in as or therefore it's a third declension. All right, just those are the families. Now, what are these cases used for? Well, let's introduce the first one. When you deal with a noun in the subject, in the nominative case, it can stand as the subject phrase. The subject phrase does the action of the verb. Metella said it, Metella sits. Servus laborat, also nominative. The slave works. That's who's doing the verb. What's the verb? At this stage, it ends in T. So if you see a word that ends in T, it's a verb. Coquus dormit, there's the verb dormit. Coquus, the nominative, the cook sleeps. Let's do a little syntactic analysis. In other words, a bit of a deeper dive. So you have a Latin sentence here, and I've done the verb for you. Don't worry about those things. We'll cover those eventually. Let's just play with Metella. What case is Metella? With a short A, that tells us it's nominative. No other signals. Therefore, it's the subject phrase. That's who's doing the verb, Metella. And then, of course, in the last line, we put in the English. So every time you see the nominative at this stage, you'll put in a nominative plus no other signals, subject phrase, and Metella. That's who's doing the verb. Now, the nominative can also be another phrase as well called the equational. So an equational phrase is just like the subject. It's what's on one side of the equal sign has to be on the other side. And in this case, in English, the equal sign is or est. So we have metella est mater. Metella is the nominative subject. Est is the equaling verb. Mater is the nominative equational phrase. Metella is a mother. Quintus is filius. Also nominative. Quintus is a son. So when you see that est, you're dealing with Lucia est filia, also nominative equational phrase. Let's do a deeper dive. So we've already covered the subject phrase. There's caecilius, nominative subject phrase. Caecilius is. Now we have filius. Filius is nominative, but it's not nominative plus zero. It's nominative plus equal. That verb est is an equal sign. Therefore, it's called an equational phrase. Caecilius is whatever that nominative is. In this case, it's a son. Caecilius, so you start with the verb est. Why is it a verb? It ends in T. Caecilius is the subject. Pater is the nominative equational. So let's take a look at this sentence. We have est. Est is an important verb. It's equal sign. So we have a subject phrase here, amagos, whatever that is, and we need another nominative. So which is the nominative here? Miser. But let's go back a little farther. Laborat. So we have laborat. There's your verb. You need a verb. You have an action. You need a subject phrase. Subject phrase is signified by nominative, which happens to be servus. All right. Let's take a look at a prepositional phrase, and we'll cover some more prepositional phrases next time. In plus ablative can be translated as in or on, but whatever it is, the preposition in plus the noun that's in the ablative signifies a place phrase. Can't get out of it. So, filia in horto legit, the daughter reads in the garden. Place phrase. The slave works in the bedroom. Place phrase. The cook is in the kitchen. Place phrase. So if we were to do a little analysis, well, there's your subject phrase, metella, subject of the verb. Metella sits. But we have this preposition in, takes the ablative, in plus the ablative place phrase. In plus the ablative place phrase in the study. So metella in tablino said it. Metella sits in the study. Now, do you have to do that on every sentence? No, not at all. I did when I was learning Latin, but this just tells you the deeper level of these things. So, well, he's trying to get out of that, but guess what? He can't. He's stuck in it. And kind of fun to watch. So, monster. Oh, in place phrase. Pretty cool. So here we have est, is, who is, caecilius the subject, in tablino, in plus ablative place phrase. So we have in, and in takes the ablative. Here we have a nice noun, hortus, hortum. So the only thing that's ablative is see. And we have an est here, an equal phrase. So we need another nominative. And we have the subject fessus. All right, so that takes care of everything. It's a rough approximation of grammar. It's what you'll need. We'll go over it in class and we'll get used to it. We have about a week or so to get used to it. So come up with any questions you have, and I look forward to seeing you. Until that time, aloha.